All right, Nate. Take it away.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Nathan Hudson. I've been working on the Southern Pine Beetle program down on Long Island since it's near after its discovery in 2014 and 15. I lived on Long Island for most of those years. I just moved back upstate last year. So the Southern Pine Beetle, we discovered it in 2014. It's native to the U.S. It's smaller than a grain of rice. Its primary host is the hard pines, which are on Long Island, the pitch pines. But that would include the red pines, loblolly, Scotch pine. It has been known to infest other hosts, such as white pines, and in severe infestations, other conifers that are, non-target hosts of the beetle, but there's so many beetles that they're just kind of entering every tree in the area. So this beetle is moving northward from the south in its native range. This is most likely due to climatic changes, allowing the beetle to move northward. It's here on Long Island and other parts of New England, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, on Cape Cod. This is basically a pine density map of Long Island, showing which areas are highest risk to southern pine beetle. And right here within the core of the central pine barrens, naturally that is where we have the greatest risk of southern pine beetle and where we've seen the greatest infestation. And also there's some high risk areas out on the South Fork and scattered throughout the island. These are known cases. The red are known infestations that we've been working for several years. The blue points going up the Hudson Valley and all the way up to the pine bush here in Albany are where we have had trap catches of beetles, and we have not seen infested trees. So the beetles are most likely being blown in on wind currents, and they're being picked up on these mountaintops within the Hudson Valley and up at the pine bush. We actually have not detected any in the pine bush in the last 2 years. That detection, or 3 years now, that detection was in 2018. But we consistently get detections in Bear Mountain, and Shinnemonk, and Minnewaska. So our Southern Pine Beetle program, boiling down our management plan into 4 really distinct, clear goals that we have. And we want to control the Southern Pine Beetle. That's through monitoring its activities on Long Island and suppressing those activities to below outbreak status. We want to protect the rare and susceptible ecosystems of the pine barrens, and then restore any areas impacted by southern pine beetle, and increasing forest health and resilience. So that's sort of the boilerplate management goals of the program. So our tactics are those 4 goals kind of laid out now into how we achieve them. Is we kind of have the control aspect that involves aerial survey, ground truthing, and then spot suppression. That's dealing directly with the beetle infestations themselves. So we fly and we do aerial surveys of the entire island. We identify where we think southern pine beetle might be active. Then we go in and, ground truth on the ground and flag any infested areas. And then we cut and suppress those areas. And this is a diagram of suppression, cut and leave suppression over here, where we identify the infested trees and the dead trees, and we cut out the actively infested trees and a small number of buffer trees around them to ensure that we got the infestation. And then we do preventative thinning, which is managing the forest to prevent future outbreaks of southern pine beetle. And this increases the forest health and resilience, and we'll talk more about that. And then restoration, which is in restoring native species, reintroducing a natural fire regime, and reestablishing a healthy and diverse ecosystem. And then also supporting our local partners and, government organizations, non-GMOs, and local groups within the Pine Barrens, like everybody here probably. Okay, So the southern pine beetle can cause damage quickly. This is a picture from the 90s in Texas where this infestation was over 1 million acres, which is more pine than Long Island has. So our goal is to prevent this, which would be just widespread forest mortality within a single year. And we've seen similar things. This is a picture of an aerial picture of Connecticut. It's taken in the winter, so the deciduous trees don't have leaves, but that also lets you see every one of these little skeletons is a pitch pine tree. And this is where the infestation has stopped here. And, you know, there's not much of Connecticut left that has a significant amount of pitch pine. So this is our aerial survey from 2020, August flight. 2020 is the first year where we started to also start to do aerial surveys for black turpentine beetle. So that's what you'll see, the pink polygon, the pink aerial polygons are suspected black turpentine beetle activity. In 2020, it was another sort of light aerial year where we didn't see these massive infestations within the core of the pine barrens here. But we did see an increased activity here on the South Fork in Southampton and East Hampton. And the next slide, we'll talk about that more. But the core of the pine barrens has been pretty good with you know, light and very light, mostly with some moderate here in East Quogue and parts of South Haven with some moderate aerial damage. So we come in and we ground truthing. This is our ground truth and our what we suppress. So any area that's green is an area that we ground truthed and it had SPB, and we went in and suppressed last year in 2020. So last year we cut 556 trees, which is a significant drop from the previous years, especially 2015, 16, 17, and 18. Those were our big suppression years when the infestation was extremely active on Long Island. And in 2019 and 2020, we've stayed around 500 infested trees within the pine barrens, the core of the central pine barrens that we've cut for suppression. And this is actually the level I think that we'll maintain. We're never going to actually truly eradicate the beetle, but we will hopefully be able to manage it in this 500 trees cut for suppression a year range. I would definitely love to keep that under 1,000 just in perpetuity. No more of the first year we found it where we cut 7,500 trees. That's keeping it below 1,000, and right around 500 is our goal at this time. So this is the slide I added. This is kind of a zoomed in aerial of the South Fork where I said that it was getting, this infestation was growing. On the right, we have most of the South Fork. And the green is the available pine resource out there. We have two infestations. We have the one in the Great Hill area, which is fairly large and continuous, and that's in the town of Southampton. And we got out and we ground surveyed it. Chris ground surveyed it several times last year. And you can see how it grew extraordinarily quickly over the course of that season, from spring to early and midsummer. And then we came back at the end of the growing season in the winter to get a final, how much did it grow during last growing season. And it increased really significantly. The infestation out in East Hampton is a little different. We've been managing it on our state lands in Barcelona Neck and Northwest Harbor County Park and some of the other public lands there. And our partners, out in East Hampton have also been doing suppression. So that infestation is much more dispersed. Could be due to these suppression efforts, probably is. And, that is a much better scenario to have these smaller, diverse, dispersed infestations than what's happening at Great Hill, where we have a large infestation that seems to be growing. And we're going to continue to monitor that this year. And we've actually already been out this spring. and it is quite active. And just to sort of, remind everybody and to talk about how, an SPB infestation, it's a dynamic infestation that's in motion. So it requires live active infestations to propagate. So once the trees over on the left are dead, those trees are vacated and they're no longer a source of beetle populations. It's those trees that still retain some life and some green in them that are going to have active brood. And this thing is in motion. So when you're out there and you're surveying and you see an infested tree, especially in the growing season in the hot summer, like it's got very clear signs and symptoms and pitch tubes. If you come back there 2 weeks later, that might be dead and evacuated, and the infestation is going to move and spread from there. So it's very live and dynamic infestation. I believe this is where I'm going to hand it off to Chris.
I'm going to be going over the signs and symptoms for southern pine beetle. Again, my name is Chris Steigerwald. I've been the forest tech for the DEC down here for about 2 years now. I've worked with southern pine beetle with the county before here as well. So been probably working with SPB for about 3 years, 3.5 years altogether. And, when you're out in the field, you're really looking for certain things like Nate mentioned before. It's all about the canopy of the trees are the first thing you really notice. You see these gold crowns, or you'll get those nice red crowns. And those are kind of the first real signals that southern pine beetle might be in the area. After you identify, these gold crowns, walk up to those trees, check out the surrounding areas, and you might see some of these pitch tubes on the tree. This is a mass attack tree. I don't know if you guys can see the picture too well, but we have these pitch tubes that go all along, all up and down the trunk of these trees. And this is, when you get those thousands of beetles attacking the one tree. They're attracted to stress trees and their pheromones. And when you get the combination of both of those smells, it's kind of irresistible to southern pine beetle. And we have a quote here at the bottom, the southern pine beetle is a predator of pine trees. It hunts and kills pine trees, something like wolves hunt and kill moose. This is from the video Story About a Beetle that we recommended everyone to watch. It's a great 20-minute clip that really gives you a lot of information about southern pine beetle. And this quote is 100% accurate. I mean, they'll relentlessly hunt and kill pine trees as long as it's available to them. These are just some pictures we have of those gold crowns. So on the left is, we call that one a gold crown. This is probably stage 2, which we'll get into in a couple slides. And on the left, you see it's like a darker red. This tree is probably evacuated already and, on its way out of being, completely killed. Some more pictures. I mentioned these before. These are the pitch tubes. They're popcorn sized. They're kind of like a red pinkish color. They're very sticky and viscous and resiny, and the beetles will actually kind of be swimming around in them. Here's a close up. So these beetles will find a tree, they'll take a bite out of it. If it's a pine tree species that they like, they'll burrow right into it. And the tree's first line of defense is to create these pitch tubes and try to pitch the beetles out of the tree. It's kind of remarkable how these little beetles, they kind of do a little backstroke in there. And they'll actually, kind of funnel the pitch out of the tubes that they made. And they actually do a really good job of swimming in it. This right here, these are galleries. So this is the beetle. Once it gets into the tree, it'll lay its eggs, its brood, and, those larvae will kind of, continue these S-shaped galleries as it continues to feed on the tree. This picture right here, this tree is probably long gone. This bark, once the bark really peels off and you get galleries this defined, it's probably a late stage tree. There might not be any needles on this tree at all. Here's another beautiful picture of galleries. It's kind of like artwork. Too bad, it kills the trees, but it does look really cool when you pull the bark back for sure. This might just be bark that fell off the tree and was laying on the ground. Usually at this point, it kind of looks dried out. And this is probably an old infestation here. Some other signs of SPB, when we're looking at it, these are really late symptoms that you'll see. On the left, you see a lot of woodpeckering. These are just woodpeckers, just, all you can eat buffet on southern pine beetle in these trees, and they'll pretty much strip the bark off completely, just going to town on them. On the right, this is the blue stain fungus. So an adult southern pine beetle, it has this fungus on it that it'll leave behind in the tree for the larva to feed on it. Unfortunately, sometimes the tree can fight off the southern pine beetle itself, but this blue stain fungus will actually inoculate the tree and could actually kill it on its own, and it leaves this really distinct and obvious blue stain behind. We really usually notice it once we cut down the tree and open up the bark a little bit. You'll kind of see it underneath. So as I mentioned before, stage 2, stage 3, these are how we define the stages of tree decline that are attacked by southern pine beetle. So first we start with stage 1. This is a fresh attack, just probably within a week. The needles are still green. The pitch tubes on it are nice and sticky and wet looking. That's kind of, the first signs we'll see of southern pine beetle getting in these trees. And then it really doesn't become noticed until far away, until it gets to stage 2, when we notice these golden crowns, we call them. You get this yellowing of the needles. And while the beetles are still present in this tree, you actually have active brood under the bark. So you'll have larvae, you'll have some pupas in there. Maybe some adults are still behind, some might have left already. And this is kind of, stage 1 and stage 2 are the real trees that we're looking for as far as suppression goes, just because they have, the early stages of the life cycle, in the mid age. And after stage 2 and 3, 1 and 2, you get to stage 3. And this is where the needles become they're like a red or like a really dark orange. And at this point, the tree is pretty much dead already. Even though it may still have some needles on the branches, it's only a matter of time before they all, fall off at that point. And at this stage, you get that the next generation of beetles are fully emerged, and they've kind of evacuated the trees and moved on at this point. So to get in a little more detail, this is stage 1. Starting from the left, you get these pitch tubes. They're nice and fresh and sticky. You might even see a beetle in there, doing the little backstroke I mentioned before. You'll see some adult clarids in there. They're probably on the bark. They feed on southern pine beetle, so you'll see them kind of hanging around. The next picture, you get this boring dust, or frass we call. This is kind of just fresh wood that the beetle just kind of dug out of the tree, and it kind of gets stuck between pieces of bark. And again, at the end, you got this green crown. You don't see any discoloration yet, but you'll see these fresh pitch tubes that could possibly go all the way up the tree. Stage 1. So the adults, they bore into the tree, they lay their eggs. These pitch tubes form. You see on the right, these are the stages of beetles that we'll have in there. You get the L1 and L2, which is just larval 1, really early stages of southern pine beetle development. This is a good tree to cut down. We want to get them when they're young, and when you expose them to these elements or kind of take away that their food resource, they don't respond too well to that. So then we move on to stage 2. This is where those green crowns fade to yellow. The pitch tubes, they'll harden a little bit. They're, depending on the weather, if it gets a little cold, they can harden overnight sometimes. But it's generally, if the weather is consistent, this can be a good sign that this is a fairly still active infestation, but it's kind of probably in the middle of its cycle of killing this tree. You'll see some new adults, that are emerging, that will pupate, and then you'll see some galleries or larvae, underneath the bark, still feeding on the tree and developing into adults. The stage 2, so these galleries really start to become prominent. The tree probably dies at some point in this stage. The eggs will hatch, the larvae will feed, all throughout the tree. And, this is kind of a perfect tree to really suppress, because it kind of has all the life stages of the beetle that I mentioned before. When you get those early stages, you really got to stop them, because, if they're already pupas or, about to pupate, they might have enough energy to, continue to develop and leave the tree, even though it's already cut and on the ground. And so emergence, I kind of, talked about this a little bit before. This is kind of that switch from stage 2 to stage 3, where you'll have the larva, they'll pupate and they'll emerge. And, we have it before, like I said right here, emergence is the key word. You'll have this whole new generation will start to leave the tree, kind of not all at once, but, fairly close to one another. And they'll just move on to the next one. a real good sign of this is the shotgun pattern. You'll see these tiny holes all throughout the bark, and each one of these holes is a new beetle pupating and actually emerging out of the tree to continue on. So here's some stage 3 signs. Again, like we mentioned, you'll get these exit holes. These are new adults emerging from the tree and evacuating it. You'll get this red crown, this dark orangish crown. You'll see some ambrosia beetle dust. These are beetles that kind of prefer dead or, dying trees. So it's kind of a good indicator of, where that tree is at. You'll get some clarid larvae or some pupas, of the beetles that kind of feed on southern pine beetle. Again, they prefer the tree to be stressed and pretty much dead at the most part. And like I mentioned before, you'll get this loose bark, this blue stain underneath. At this point, the bark will really just kind of fall off the tree. And it's kind of just a standing dead tree at that point. So some lookalikes, Nate mentioned before, 2020 was kind of the first year we started aerial surveying for black turpentine beetle. They create these pitch tubes pretty much just like southern pine beetle, but the big difference is they're a lot bigger. They're probably 2 or 3 times the size, sometimes even larger than that. And they really kind of only congregate on the lower half of the tree. So, really from the roots to the top, 5-6 feet is kind of really where you'll see these guys congregating for the most part. Where it gets tricky is, sometimes you'll have a tree with southern pine beetle and black turpentine beetle, and that area where they're mixing, is it a southern pine beetle pitch tube, is it a black turpentine pitch tube? So sometimes it's a little tricky, to know exactly what you're looking at. But these pitch tubes are a really good indicator. From the picture on the right, just the size alone. They say southern pine beetle is half the size of an uncooked grain of rice, which you can really see in that picture. That is an uncooked piece of rice. And above it is the black turpentine beetle. You can see the size difference, and the galleries in the pitch tube left behind by black turpentine beetle can sometimes be very obvious that it's not southern pine beetle. So monitoring, Nate kind of mentioned this before. We do these aerial surveys and we do ground truthing. We try to focus in the core of the pine barrens and known and infested locations. So what we'll do is, we'll get in the plane, we'll take some pictures, we'll make polygons from above. And at that point, once we kind of narrow down our search, I'll get out there on the ground and, we'll really walk up to those trees and get a nice up and close look at them to, really identify if it's southern pine beetle or possibly turpentine beetle. So aerial surveys, this is a typical picture of, what we'll see up in the air. You can notice, this gray area right here, these are all dead trees. This is probably where the infestation started. These gold crowns over here all on the side, this is probably where it's at now at this point, even down here a little bit. And so when we get on the ground, when we look at this, we head to those yellow trees, that's kind of where we think it is. But, there's probably a lot of stage 1s in there that aren't really showing from the air that, you can't really tell until you actually get on the ground and look at them up and close. So our aerial surveys, I kind of mentioned this before. We outline the areas of damaged pine. That's all those polygons you see. We'll rank the spots, depending on the number. Green is probably a handful of trees, 5 to 10. Yellow is, a little more than that, and red was probably anywhere, 50 to 100. At this point in time, really what we're finding. So then, after the aerial surveys, the ground surveys. So we'll go to these polygons and, we'll, for the most part, walk every inch of them. And, we look for dead trees. We look for crown discoloration, anything that might be a sign of previous infestation or active infestation. Even if we're not going to suppress it, it's always good to know, that southern pine beetle was here. Maybe it's still here. It's just a stage 1 that unless we walk right past it, we're not going to find it. But what we'll do is, Nate mentioned our suppression tactics before. We'll mark the infested trees. That's the picture on the far right. We mark them with yellow flagging, and then we do buffer trees around it. Anything within, I believe it's 10 feet, between the crown or the trunk, we'll mark as a buffer. And, you know, depending on the size of the infestation, sometimes that buffer will increase a little larger than that if it's a really big one. So suppression, you know, this is what we'll do. We'll flag these trees and we'll go on there. There's a nice picture of our crew. A lot of those guys aren't here anymore. But, you know, sometimes we'll put in full days worth of work where, you know, we'll cut down 50 trees a day, you know, 75 to maybe even 100 trees when it's first starting. And, you know, all day, every day, just looking for these orange flags in the woods and, you know, cutting them, you know, in towards the infestation. Because, you know, if you cut them into, you know, healthy pine trees that aren't infested yet, if they emerge from that down tree, they might just jump right to those healthy trees right there. So this is our spot suppression, cut and leave. You know, we mentioned this a couple times before. You know, here you have these dead trees. The red ones are the active infestation. And what we'll do is, you know, if you look at the bottom part, you cut the infested trees back towards the dead ones. And then these yellow ones, these are uninfested buffers that we're setting up to kind of, you know, create that barrier to the healthy, uninfested trees around. Spot suppression. So this is just some pictures we have. You know, a lot of the woods here, you know, they're a little dense as far as trees. So we kind of got this before, after. You know, some of these trees are probably fresh stage ones, you know, with some green crowns in there. And, you know, we cut, we leave them, we buck them up in the ground. And then, you know, on the right is that after picture. And you can kind of see how, you know, in this one spot area, we kind of removed a lot of that canopy, you know, due to the pines being infested for southern pine beetle. And so we kind of make these, you know, cookie cutouts, you know, in the woods of these suppressions. And, you know, it's never fun cutting down trees, but, you know, if you can contain it to, you know, that one spot, you know, sometimes you have to sacrifice the few to save the many, in this case. And so, you know, these are some great examples of why we do the suppression right here. You know, on the left, this is an area that was untreated. You know, we did no suppression here. And in 1 year, the infestation actually grew 10 times in size without suppression cut. This was in East Quag. You know, almost that whole area was kind of lost within 1 year. If you look at the right picture, you know, this is in Henry's Hollow. There was active suppression here, and you could see, you know, there was very little expansion of this infestation from 1 year from the other. It did creep a little bit. What we usually find is, you know, we cut 100 trees 1 year, we'll have to come back and, you know, maybe we'll cut 30 trees the next time. And, you know, so it's a process of, you know, getting it down to just 1 or 2 trees, but it's usually cut in half, if not a little more, every time we do these suppression cuts. So this is just some of our, you know, restoration of the aftermath, suppression versus unsuppressed. You know, you'll have these cut, you know, these slash piles in the woods, if you will, you know, when we cut it. But if it's unsuppressed, you know, these trees are kind of just standing dead hazard trees at this point, and, you know, they become a real risk of falling over on their own. You know, sometimes if they're over trails, you can have branches come down and, you know, in a semi decent gust of wind. So they actually, you know, they do serve a purpose more than just suppression. You know, safety does kind of play a role too in these softwood stands as well. You know, restoration, you know, so we try to do some of these, you know, cone collection of native genetic pine trees that I believe they're growing in Saratoga Tree Nursery. You know, so this is kind of just another thing we do, you know, for southern pine beetle, where, you know, they go into an area, you know, they'll wipe out every pine tree, you know, kind of just be like a wildfire went through, just a sea of standing dead trees. So, you know, we harvest these cones, you know, we try to grow some baby pitch pines, and, you know, we'll actually come back down here and, you know, we'll plant them in some spots. It's hard with all the deer, but, you know, we put up these little fences around them, and some of them do make it. And we've actually been seeing some recruitment in some areas, you know, that southern pine beetle have, you know, for the most part, totally destroyed. But I think some of them, I guess, got their pine cones off before, you know, they kind of kicked the bucket, you know, which is encouraging. You know, I'm going to pass this back over to Nate. You know, this is where we get into more of our forestry management, kind of southern pine beetle prevention. You know, and these are areas, you know, here on Long Island where there's no active infestations, but, you know, we're worried about them possibly getting in there in the future. So, you know, we're starting to implement some of these management things.
All right, Chris. No, you can keep sharing it and just click through. There's only a couple more slides left.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Okay, so forest management. So we talked about, dealing directly with the beetle infestation and aerial and ground surveying, and then going in and suppressing it. And that's really to slow that infestation down enough so that we can come in and get forest management and prevention done. So the southern pine beetle infestations are density dependent. So if you look at this picture here, this is an extremely dense pitch pine stand, and the pheromones under the density of this stand sit underneath the canopy and they can't disperse. So then, just as that Matt Ayres quote about the hunting, and these beetles hunt and kill southern pine beetle, and they do that by smell. So they can smell either the stress and the pinene produced in these dense stands, or by beetle activity, southern pine beetle activity. So they come in, and once an infestation gets established in a dense stand like this, it can really spread like wildfire. And if you click to the next, I believe we'll see a thin stand. This is the before and after. This is over in Sarnoff, so not far away from the commission office. On the left is the stand before. It had a lot of scrub oak and pitch pine, and we came in and we did forestry mastication and chainsaw thinning to produce the stand result on the right, which is more typical of a pine barrens pine savanna look. And when you have an open canopy like that, the wind can come in and blow these pheromones out. And if you can get the basal area, which is a measurement of tree density, to between 60 and 80, a southern pine beetle infestation is not able to establish between 60 and 80. And this stand on the right here, that is right about 60. And we create different areas. So there's areas of the stands we manage that are down at 60, and areas that are up to 80. So it's a nice diverse stand with varying basal area throughout. So if you go to the next one, and then after we thin it, the goal is to then, with the commission and our partners, and we're building a prescribed fire program that we can come in and we can maintain these thinnings with a prescribed natural fire regime. And this is a picture that Chris sent me of one of the demonstration blocks burning in Rocky Point State Forest this spring that they burnt. So we've done four of the demonstration forest blocks. I think Chris was on a lot of those burns. Jade maybe was as well. And the demonstration forest in Rocky Point is exactly that. We have areas that are not thinned, areas that are thinned, and areas that are thinned and burnt. So the kind of no management, thinning alone, and thinning and fire. So that we can either bring people and show them, or there's trail signs along the promenade path that are going to be going up now that they're not at risk of burning during the prescribed fire, so that people can see the different types of management for pine barrens ecology and for southern pine beetle suppression. And with that, I think that we're going to take any questions. Bring the comments up. All right.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys got any questions, you can put them in the chat box. We'll definitely, answer them as they come in. I know our next section, is he? Oh yeah, I see Bill Jacobs on here. All right, cool. So, what we kind of ask a lot of the people to do, there's a great app called IMAP Invasives, and this is kind of a great way for you guys, if you're out in the woods, just going on hikes, you can fill out this quick form. It doesn't take too long at all. And it kind of just sends us, a notification that, southern pine beetle was found in this area. And, it's another way, to let me know where it is so I could possibly get there, or anyone else for the most part. So it's a really good tool that, Bill Jacobs of LISMA, will explain to you guys now.
So I'm Bill Jacobs. I'm the program manager for LISMA, which is the Long Island Invasive Species Management Area. A little bit of background on LISMA and who we are. The Long Island Invasive Species Management Area is a voluntary association of landowners and land managers working together to prevent the spread of invasive species. We serve all of Long Island and parts of New York City, including Staten Island, Brooklyn, and Queens. And we're funded by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund, which is administered by DEC. We have 3 people on staff: myself, Abby Bezrutsik, who's our field project and outreach coordinator, and Haley Gladich, who is our invasive species specialist. Haley started out as a forest monitoring intern in the Pine Barrens. All right, let's go right to IMAP invasives. This is an online GIS-based invasive species data management system used to assist professionals and citizen scientists working to protect our natural resources from the threat of invasive species. Funding for IMAP invasives is also provided by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund, and it's a joint project of the New York Natural Heritage Program, SUNY ESF, NatureServe, and DEC also. So there are essentially 3 different ways to use IMAP invasives. It's a cell phone app, as you can see on the left here, which you can download for free from your app store, whichever app store you have. Search for IMAP invasives, download it, and install it onto your phone. There's also a desktop version on the right, and we're going to look at both today. The desktop version is at newyorkimapinvasives.org. And just to complicate things, you can also look at the desktop version on your cell phone if you would ever want to. I never do. I either use the mobile app or the desktop app, depending on what I'm using at the time. And I'm going to walk you through both apps and show you live how to log in and how to use them. So first we'll look at the website. And here's the link here, and hopefully this will work. This is the imapinvasives.org, newyorkimapinvasives.org. So if you go to your search bar and just type in New York IMAP invasives, it will bring you here. You can see over here a login button. This is where you go to log in, or also to register for the first time, and I'll show you. I already have a email address registered. If you're new to IMAP invasives, you'll also see a sign up form right here, and you can put in your name and email address and password and hit join, and you're in. I'm going to log in, show you how it works. I usually start here. I start with the desktop, and that's where I would recommend that you register your name and then go to the mobile app. You can do it either way. You can register using the mobile app as well. I just find it easier to register first on the website and then secondly on the mobile app. So this is where IMAP invasives brings you. See a map like this. On the left, there's some menu items. Across the top right, there's some other ones, and then a legend and some other things on the right here. I'll show you all of those. To get started, you go up to the top left here. Some people say this looks like a hamburger. This little thing here, I don't know. It doesn't to me, but anyway, so let's start there. It tells you you're logged in. You want to pick your right jurisdiction in all. So you would go and select your jurisdiction. There's several states and regions here. And of course, you'd want to pick New York. And that's pretty much it for this window. Just go in and pick New York. We'll go back to that. Go back to the map. And let's see if there's anything else over here to look at. Your species list, network species list. You also can join different projects. You won't have to worry about this for a while. Unless the Pine Barrens has its own project labeled as such, you may not need this. Organizations, if you're working for an organization, you can use that. This tells you about yourself. Well, it's supposed to. Let's see. Your account. All right. So you can look at your account here. Also in this menu. There's a help section. Let's go back to the map because this is where most of the work with IMAP invasives is done on this map right here. You can see the regions of the country that use IMAP invasives. It's not the entire country yet, but it's a good part of it, and some areas of Canada as well. You can zoom in, zoom out on the left. A quick way to zoom to where you are at any moment is to hit this button here, find my location. And that will take you right to where you are. Or alternately, you can use this search on map. Say you are in West Hampton. And you can type in West Hampton and IMAP will take you right there. It tends to be a slow app, like with spinning wheels like this, which is not unusual. So if you get a spinning wheel, it's pretty normal. Some days it's worse than others. It's spinning a lot for me because I haven't created any kind of a filter or a search area. So it's looking for everything. It's looking for every record on Long Island. So that makes it take a little more time. But I wanted to show you all the records. They start out as these honeycombs. And then if you zoom in, you can, it's going really slow today. You can click on one of these points and see what's behind it. So this here is South Haven County Park. And we've found southern pine beetle there before. This is the Carmen's River, which if you haven't seen it, it's a beautiful river. Has native brook trout in it still. And okay. Let's let that spin a little bit. And I'll define a search area so it stops spinning. But let's take a look at South Haven County Park. Because that does have southern pine beetle. What we'll do, see up here on the right, identify measure. This will come in handy now so that this doesn't keep searching all of Long Island for every record. we're going to just put a polygon around South Haven County Park. So I'm going to select Identify Measure. And I want to measure area. You won't need to remember all of these. It's pretty basic with the menu on the left and the menu across the top. So if you don't remember everything now, once you use it a couple times, it'll come to you. All right, so I'm going to, did I do that already? Select area. And I'm going to define my area for South Haven, which is roughly this. All right, now I have a polygon. And you notice it stopped spinning. The little wheel in the middle stopped spinning. So let's see what's here at South Haven County Park. It's checking all the records. So you can select any area you want to look at, any area in the Pine Barrens, simply put a polygon around it, and then select See What's Here, and it will show you all the invasives that have been recorded into IMAP. So for South Haven County Park, we have, not surprisingly, a lot of Norway maple. We have Tree of Heaven, which is one of the favorites of the spotted lanternfly, which is an emerging invasive species. We have some garlic mustard, Japanese barberry, typical Long Island invasive species. I'm just going to scroll down and see. We should have some spotted not spotted lanternfly, southern pine beetle. We should have some southern pine beetle in here. It's a big list though. Bittersweet, because we did find some last year and we put it in here. There we go. Southern pine beetle. They have been recorded since, well, there's some in 2015, 2006. It looks like at South Haven, they were first noticed around 2006, according to these records. But I'm going to put in, whoop, I passed it. I'll put in a record. So if you go over here, you can see details, and we can look at the details of one of the records. So we found southern pine beetle along River Road. This is a photo. A fairly fresh pitch tube there. It's real small. And actually, this might have actually had the southern pine beetle still in it. We found some that had the beetles in there. That's a photo. And I'll show you on the cell phone app when we get to that how to take the photos. You can make some comments on your cell phone. This one says in Southern Pine Beetle Control Site. This was a site, an area that was controlled in the past. And occasionally some survived the control. Maybe they were in a nearby tree and they came back. This was a live beetle observed in the pitch tube. There are other fields you can fill out, which we did not fill out. And then someone, whenever you make an IMAP invasives record, someone will come along. You don't have to be concerned with it. Someone at IMAP or someone at LISMA, although we're not supposed to confirm our own records, but someone at LISMA will confirm your records. This species was verified by Brian Ellis. We can go to the map right here. Oh, it took us too far. I thought it was going to bring us back to the spot, but it didn't. Let's type in south. If I remember how to spell it. Is it 2 H's? Oh, they spell it as 2 words. Okay. All right, so I'm taking us back to South Haven County Park just to show you how to use some other features here. I'm going to put a polygon around it again. Double click at the end and you get your polygon. Although we can look over here. We can change, let's look on the right. There's different things you can do on the right. You can change the base map. You can make a satellite map, which I'm hesitant to do because I might slow it down even more. But you can. I like the satellite one. There we go. There's different layers you can add, which you probably won't use, but you can. You can turn some layers on and off. Right now we're looking at confirmed species. You can also look at unconfirmed present species. We'll leave that off. And you can show a legend too. So right now we're looking at confirmed species. Okay. We're back at South Haven. We've drawn a polygon around the park. These are all the records. These are not just southern pine beetle. This is everything. But let me see. I think that one. Some of these were southern pine beetle along the road here. I'm just going to pick one randomly and see what happens. That was a southern pine beetle by Diana Sanford in 2015 from DEC. This is very important as a tool for professional conservationists to track over time what's happening on the landscape. We really have no other way that everybody has access to, all the agencies have access to, and even citizen scientists that track invasive species over time like this. And they also track, the IMAP Invasives also tracks management work that's been done. I'll show you that. So let's just take a quick look at this record by Diana. There's no photo with it. Sometimes there are photos, sometimes not. Depends. It also depends if the records were bulk uploaded. Sometimes there's not all the data that comes with a bulk upload of a whole group of records from an agency, which is probably what happened here. All right, let's go back to the map. We'll close this. What else can we do? I'm going to close that. All right, so we showed you everything on the left. Zoom in, zoom out, find your location. Up here, this up here is for creating a record. You can manually put in a record on the website of an infestation that you see, but I rarely use that. Find a record, I rarely use that also because you have to know the record ID, and I never know the record ID, so I don't use that very much. This one I use a lot, filter records. Say you just want to know species at this park. Southern, you type in species name, southern pine beetle, say apply filter. May take a little while because again, I'm looking at the whole island, but let's see, minimize it. All right, that worked. So this is just southern pine beetle at South Haven County Park. Again, what we did was filter records up here. You can filter by observer. You can put in your name or your number to see just your records. You can survey by species name, which is what I use most frequently. You can survey, you can filter by organization. That's not used that often. Or you can filter by project. Again, I don't use that often. This is the one I mostly use. Filter by species name. And you can add species if I want to add garlic mustard. And then apply filter. And now you're looking at southern pine beetle and garlic mustard. All right. And so those are, you have location, you have filtering along the top. You don't need to be concerned with export. That's if you want to export the data for use in another GIS system, or if you want to export an Excel spreadsheet, which you can. That's kind of cool. That's helpful sometimes. And there's another item which is hiding behind my and close layers, which I never really use. I'll just show you this. Let's just change the base map once just so you can see what it looks like if it cooperates. There you go. I like to use satellite images a lot because it tells you more about what's happening on the ground. Okay. So that's the website version of IMAP Invasives. If anybody has any questions on it, you can always contact myself or Avi or Haley anytime. What I'm going to try to do is share my, I'm going to stop sharing this. Let's see, let's go back to the presentation for a sec. I'm going to stop sharing this, stop share. And I'm going to try to share my cell phone. Let's see if this works. Share screen. There we go. Good. So say I've already gone to my app store. I've downloaded the IMAP app, which is that one on the right there. And this is what it will look like on your cell phone. A lot of times it will ask you if you want your IMAP list updated. This is a phone app, so you don't want to use data all the time while you're out in the field. It may ask you if you're connected to Wi-Fi, if you want to update your list of invasive species. It may ask you in the field also. So in the field, you would say no. Even at home, I don't want to refresh my data now because I'm doing the training. But if you are in the office or at home, it's a good idea to say, yes, refresh your data. But we're not going to do that now, though. The mobile app is fairly easy. It has some, it's got that hamburger thing of menus up on the top. What you want to do when you first start with your cell phone app, your mobile app, is select preferences. And similar to what you did on the website, you want to pick New York as your species list. So you have you can pick from all these many states, and you want to have New York. You also want to retrieve your IMAP lists, which we're not going to do now because that might take a couple minutes. It's usually pretty quick, but you want to get the initial list of invasive species for our region onto your phone. So you would pick that green button in the middle there. You can select if you want to display species by scientific or a common name. You can also customize a species list. If you don't want to see every species on Long Island, you don't want to see all the garlic mustard, which is everywhere, or all the barberry, you just want to see southern pine beetle and a few other things, you can create your own species list. Picture quality, I recommend selecting the 100% and save photos to your device. You check that. That gives it permission to save the photos. You don't need the project or organization unless they give you that information. You probably don't need it. And then you would hit save. So I'm just going to cancel. Okay, so that's again up here on the top left. On the top left of the app, you select that, hit preferences, and that's where you select New York and retrieve your list. You don't have to do that every time you use the app. Just the first time, pretty much. There might be some other times that. Let's add an observation. You can see here I have some other older observations that I haven't uploaded yet. You're working in the field again with limited bandwidth. So what the app does is it stores all your records on the phone and waits till you get back to Wi-Fi for you to upload them. So on the top right here, let's add an observation. It says take photo using camera. I don't have any southern pine beetles in my office here, so I'm going to take a picture of a plant. Try to get a good, well-focused image so that when someone goes to confirm your record, they can identify what you're looking at. Take the photo. If it's not a good photo, you can hit cancel. If it's a good photo, just hit OK. And that might, for you, that might be a southern pine beetle. Could be anything you want. So as I scroll down the phone menu, species, select the species that you want. I'm going to select southern pine beetles in here, but I'm going to select fake species, which we use for training, which I don't know what they call it in scientific terms. Fake, maybe it's just fake species. Let me check. There you go. You would pick, obviously, southern pine beetle or whatever else you find out there. I'm going to select fake species just for this. Was the species detected or not detected? This is helpful. You can survey an area and maybe you didn't find southern pine beetle, and that's good to know also. So you would want to check species not detected. For now, we'll say species detected. We have the date. That's automatically. The location is automatic. You can move the location. See where it says GPS unchecked to manually move location. Let's try. I don't do this much, but it's not. Well, it's just kind of moving around. That's not really helpful. Mine always defaults at Lisma Prism project. Yours won't. I put in the time searched. We'll say 15 minutes. The size of the area. You have 4 size classes here, up to 10 square feet, up to half an acre, up to an acre, more than an acre. I'll say up to 10 square feet. Distribution of invasive. We'll say it's trace, it's a single plant. But you also have sparse, dense, monoculture. Southern pine beetle would probably be trace. Then it's important to put in some comments. Fake, whatever you want, fake species. Because you can search later by keywords. Say this is a cultivated plant. put that in there also. Any comments that you want. And I'll hit save. And there it is. It comes up on the screen, fake species detected. It's got the date. And I can add as many species as I want. I just keep going up to add observation on the top right and take photos and add as many as you want. When you get back to the office, now you want to upload them to the website. Check the ones you want to upload. It's a little checkbox. You can also go to that menu on the top left, that hamburger up there. You can say select all, or you can say select none. I'll just do this one here. So I have that one checked. Back up to the hamburger. Upload selected. Are you sure you want to upload? Yes. And you can view it online if this works. I don't know if I can do it from the cell phone. I usually do it from the... Let's live dangerously. Let's try it. I usually go back to my laptop to see it online later. So this is how the website looks on your cell phone. I remember I mentioned earlier, you can also look at the website on your cell phone. I don't know if it's going to take me right to that record. It might not. It's not though, but you can search around and find your record on there. Okay, so that's the website. Go to the website to register. Put in your email address and make up a password. Then go to your cell phone, download the app for free, log in, and you're ready to go. It might look like a lot, but essentially it's taking a photo, saying whether the species was found or not found, writing down some comments and whatever else you want to put down there. And when you get back to the office, you upload it. All right. Does anyone have any questions? I'll check the chat, I guess, or however you want to do it.
Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, they can definitely put it in the chat. Bill, thank you very much. That was
Yeah,
great.
you're welcome. Yeah, I might have gone a little over. If you guys have questions, contact us at lismaprism.org and just ask any questions you want anytime about anything invasive related. Oh, that's a good question. Do you need to know the invasive you upload? Yes, yes, pretty much generally yes, although you can upload and select fake species. Just remember fake species and then try to identify it later on. And then you can go back and correct it. So either you know it or select fake species and try to identify it. There's one more tool that's important, which we didn't cover today. It's iNaturalist. Sometimes I say the wrong name for each of them. But iNaturalist is also a free mobile app. And if you take a picture of any plant or animal that you see, it will help identify it for you. So you have iNaturalist, which can help identify them for you, and it will also record them for you. And then once you know what it is, you can, if it's invasive, you can go back to IMAP invasives. Two apps that I use pretty regularly, both of them.
Yeah, they definitely both come in handy. I just want to add, for the IMAP, when you guys are taking pictures of southern pine beetle, we really ask for people to get a good picture of those pitch tubes. And, if you see any beetles in them, great. That's really the biggest indicator for us. It makes our job a lot easier because, just a gold crown, could be anything. It's more than just beetles that kill pine trees. So it's really the pitch tubes that are, kind of solidify what it is. And then, iNaturalist is great too. I use it sometimes. I believe IMAP also has an unknown species that you can select other than a fake species.
That's true. Good point. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, it's really about the picture. I mean, if you don't know what it is, but if you take a good picture, if it's a plant, if it's a leaf, or a bud, that can kind of have one of us, be able to identify it, even if you have it as unknown.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're all confirmed by someone, by LISMA staff or someone. And if the ID is unknown or incorrect, we can help you identify it. All right. I don't see any more questions, but you know where to find me.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for having me.
No problem. We appreciate it.
Enjoy. See you soon. Bye.
Take care. Yeah, everyone else, that pretty much wraps up our training for the day. We appreciate all you guys, joining in, tuning in, and listening to us. We mentioned before, we'll send an email to everyone with the link of this recorded, so you can watch it, later. We have the field session at 1:30 out in Southampton. So if you guys signed up for that, we'll see you out there later this afternoon. And have a good day, everyone. And thank you again.
Yeah, if you are coming to the outdoor field session, maybe write in the chat just so that we don't leave without you. So just a final count. If you are going to join us in the field, maybe write in the chat that you are definitely coming and that we'll see you. We're going to start walking away at 1:30. So.
Yep. And you included the addresses in the agenda?
Yes, right? The address is in the agenda. Yep, so there's a Google map link.
Perfect. Yeah, just check the agenda. It's got an address. It's kind of a neighborhood. There's a dead end where we'll all meet, kind of a traffic circle area. We'll be there around 1 o'clock, but we'll wait and we'll go into the woods at 1:30. So be there by then if you guys plan to come. Thanks again, everyone.
Yeah, maybe hit that Excel sheet.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for logging in. Have fun when you go out in the field.
So I have.
Those two, I think, agreed, right?
So I have Omar, Savannah, Jared, Sarah, Sam, Chris, and then Liana. That's the person that I didn't have. Is Liana in there? She's the only one that I had to talk to. No, she's not in there. Okay. All right. Well, then I guess we'll see all of you out there.
All right. We'll see you guys in a little bit. Thanks again. Take care.